Welcome back to The Book People, where I interview people whose lives and careers revolve around books. I'm your host Aishwarya, and today we are going to talk about translations. So, India has this really rich literary tradition, and we have been publishing books in so many Indian languages forever, way before we started publishing in English. And now, recently, we have been seeing a lot of translations and Indian writing in other languages become popular and become mainstream with our readers, with publishing houses, and with prizes like the JCB Prize. So, today I'm talking to Trisha the Niyogi, who's the director of Niyogi Books, an independent publishing house that has achieved so much in the last 15 years, and they have multiple imprints where they translate books from Indian languages to English and to Hindi and vice versa. So we talk about why Niyogi Books focuses on these very interesting types of books, whether they are illustrated books or translations, and how do they make sure that these books reach the right audience. And we at Bound absolutely love, supporting Indian books and translations, and we want to do everything that we can to uplift these books. So, if you are writing a book or you're translating a book into English and want to make sure that it reaches the right audience, we can help you out with book marketing services. So, just send us an email at connect@boundindia.com and we can get started making sure your book reaches the right place. And we've also interviewed Arunava Sinha, who's one of the biggest translators in India, on our other podcast, Books and Beyond with Bound. So definitely check out that episode if you want to know more about translations and how to become a translator and more about the nuances of the author and translator relationship. But right now, I'm going to talk to Trisha about her perspective on translations and how we can make sure that we include a little bit more of Indian books and literature into our lives. And something that I really, really want to ask her is why are translations becoming popular now? What is the significance of now? So let's get started. Hi, Trisha. Welcome to the Book People.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you. And so, the first question that I want to ask you is Niyogi has achieved so much in the last 15 years. So, do you think that there is this myth about independent publishers, always being small in terms of, say, team size or in terms of, the volume of books that they can produce? Or do you think that that myth is true, but Niyogi has been able to somehow break out of that mold?
Okay, now it is true that independent publishers are actually smaller in size as compared to a multinational organization or a publishing house. But having said that, independent publishing houses have their own strengths, which cannot be not elucidated when you're talking about independent publishing houses. For example, we know of Faber and Faber. It's one of my favorite publishing houses in the entire world. And the kind of books they publish and the resources they have, it's not it's not something that stops them from publishing interesting books or having award winning titles or authors on board. So now in India, our publishing house, specifically ours, we are an independent publishing house, we have limited resources. And many a times our roles within an organization overlap. For example, the editor might have to help the marketing team as well to promote a book. So there is overlap, and there is a resource crunch all the time. Okay, we are always working on a resource crunch, but that helps us to maximize whatever we can do with the resource crunch. So we tend to maximize returns from almost everything we take up, be it capital or time or efforts or anything like that. That's, I think, is one of the benefits of being in a independent publishing house, that because you do so many different things, there are overlaps within your job and you can connect the resources much better. So that way independent publishing houses have their benefits. Plus another benefit of being a publishing house is that somehow you have the ability to explore new topics, new subjects and be closer to the ground. That's what we've
Yeah.
seen over the past, that independent publishing houses have done something which even multinationals haven't done so yet.
Absolutely, I agree with everything you said, and it's almost like you all are hustlers, right? You're trying to figure out what the gaps are and what gaps to fill, but also how to do that with these very limited resources, limited people, and then also put out like really good quality stuff. So what I want to know is, obviously something that independent house publishing houses are known for is this sort of niche or expertise that they have in sort of certain kinds of books, right?
Hmm.
But at the same
Hmm.
time, they're known for being super accessible to the people, to readers, making sort of this niche knowledge accessible to people. So how do independent publishing houses in general and like Neogi in particular, how do you know how to create that balance between niche and accessible both at the same time?
All books, be it by an independent publishing house or a or a multinational publishing house,
Yeah.
all of them are niches. All are niches because they focus on one subject. Like for
Right.
example, I'll give you one example. Okay, so this is the book I'm coming out with next month. It's by Indira Goswami, 5 novellas about women. Now, this is a fiction, and this is a fiction related to women. Okay. Now, it is a niche. It is a very small subject or a topic that we have taken into consideration. But we won't call that a niche. We call the market a niche. We don't call the book a niche because
Yeah.
every book specializes in a particular subject. Right. Let me talk about the first imprint, that is the illustrated book imprint. Now, we focus a lot on art, architecture, heritage, history, travel, culture, theater, and so many different subjects. Right. So it is 60% text and 40% images, but it is also known as coffee table books. Very wrongly known as coffee table books. The coffee table books
Yeah.
are different and illustrated books are different. And whenever I've mentioned to people that it's illustrated books, they've always come up with, is this a children's book? Like children's books are a subset of illustrated books. Now
Right.
the problem arises here is because the cost of producing these books are much higher. They have longer incubation period because it requires years and years of research, and so the entire cost of the book is much higher. Even the production cost is very high. As a result, what happens, the final end product price is also much higher. Now in a price
Right.
sensitive, now the book market is quite price sensitive in India, and since the price is higher, a lot of people are cut out from the buying population who would either be interested in that book. Now, but there is no way that I can reduce the cost. Specifically now that the paper rates are high, they're very, the market is very fragile and volatile. I cannot reduce my prices at this point of time. My cost is that high that I can't reduce the cost at all. And hence the price remains high. Even having said that, there was a lacuna, and we have reduced the prices of our books significantly. Earlier, most of our illustrated books used to be imported. But we managed to, because we have our own printing setup, we managed to bring the costs and the prices down significantly.
You have your own like physical
Yeah.
printing press machine thing
Yeah.
at Neogi Books. That is so cool.
So
You know,
if you,
I saw a couple of those in Canada when I was doing my master's because they took us to the publishing. They took us to like a printing press where, they actually showed us how those machines work and they're super, super, super sharp. Like the
yeah,
blades of the machines where you cut the paper and where the books are sort
folding.
of stuck to.
Now, let's talk about translations. That is our imprint Thornburg. Now, it is a fiction. It is not meant to be a niche. It is a work of fiction. But when it becomes a translation activity, it is us who are putting it in a niche for the sake of our marketing clarity, so that we can reach
Absolutely.
out to people more clearly. So it's not that these books are actually niches. It's how we think and how do we go forward with a particular format and how we communicate that makes a niche for us.
I think those labels to writers can sometimes be so confusing because, I feel like as a writer, when I'm writing, I'm not thinking ahead saying I'm going to write a book or a story in this particular genre. So I think
Yeah.
it's really interesting you say this about translations because I agree, translations we consider so niche and, such a small sort of subset of books published in India, but actually in those languages, those books could be super mainstream and super popular.
Yeah. No, you are right when you said that they are stars or heroes in their own languages. For example, I we just work on this book called Elegy for the East. It's a translation from the Assamese language.
Right.
Kalantara Gottu is the Assamese name. Uh, Now, that is one of the best works in modern Assamese literature right now. And the line between Maasi and literary fiction genre over there, it's not there. That distinction is not there because it is a massy read book. It's read by the masses and it is a literary work. Then these genres and labelings are actually done only by us, just for the sake of communication, just so that we can communicate better, and they need not be pigeonholed into different genres all the time. And it also helps the bookstores to categorize book, to look properly shelve them. Otherwise, it's a difficult game. How do you communicate all the time to all the people by the word of mouth?
Yeah.
So
No,
this
I
is
was exactly thinking about that experience of as a reader going to a offline brick and mortar bookstore, like walking into a bookstore and then knowing exactly what section you want to walk towards and picking a book up from that section. India has this super super rich, almost heritage of literature, right? In so many languages that for so long hasn't been recognized or acknowledged. But now we're seeing a lot of discourse about that, right? A lot of conversation, like translations winning prizes like the JCV prize, a lot of people picking up translations and actively looking for translations to read.
yeah.
What do you think has created that shift, and why now do you think all of this is happening?
So, when we talk about translations, we have to see two phases. There was a time when interlingual translation, that is, translation between Indian languages, was rampant. Um,
Hmm.
it may most likely that was Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, who was attributed by the Malayalis or the Marathi as their own, because he was so widely translated and he connected so well with the Indian audience, and even though he wrote in Bangla, it touched the heart of the readers who read in Malayalam and Marathi. So that translation in our Indian literature was quite rampant, and it still is happening. For example, some brilliant publishers, like Mehta Publishing House in Marathi, and Manjul in, in Hindi, and so on. And there are a lot of them who are doing this work still. But the phase of translation, the one which you're seeing right now, the boom, from Indian languages to English, the discourse literally started around in the 1970s or 80s. So in 1984, um, Geeta Dharmarajan set up Katha. And we all know it's a non-profit publishing houses
Yeah.
built to build a field of translations. We had Mini Krishnan, and she had a very ingenious plan. She searched for funding. Now, I'll tell you what the funding is all about. It took her 7 years and many regrets, and to incubate the modern Indian novels in translation project under Macmillan in Macmillan India in 1992, and under which she did a lot of translations from a lot of Indian languages to English. Then there was Urvashi Butalia and Mritu Menon, as mentioned earlier, in 1984. They set up Kali for Women and tirelessly worked to bring out women's voices in translation. Now, this is all happening in the private front. I also wanted to bring to your notice something which is happening in the government front. So the Professor Nirmakanti Bhattacharya was heading interlingual translations in Sahitya Academy, which worked on translations from one Indian languages to another. And he primarily focused on Odia, Assamese, Bangla, Nepali, Manipuri, Maithili, as well as English. Then in
Right.
1998, under his leadership again in NBT, a series called Adan Pradhan or Give or Take was revitalized. And this project saw hundreds of books being translated from one Indian language to another. And it was one of the largest government funded activities of its kind. Now,
Right.
these were the building blocks to what we see today. We really don't see how difficult
Yeah.
it was back then. We have our own challenges right now, but I don't think we really understand the challenges that they went through.
I can't even imagine because I mean, you started giving these dates, and some of them were before I was even born. So,
I know. I was born, so yeah.
yeah, so like obviously the work in, making sort of translations or building that, I don't know,
Yeah.
like culture or that almost
The ecosystem.
yeah, ecosystem exactly of translations has been going on for so long. I
Yeah.
think that's, so very interesting to know.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this, but I also interviewed Ishani Butalia from Zuban for
Okay.
this podcast. So even, like I have interned with Zuban and I love Zuban because Urvashi Butalia started Kali for women and then she started Zuban Books, right, which is another feminist independent publishing house. So it's very interesting to see these linkages. Do you think that the interest in translations, which
Mm.
is, I mean, the interest of mainstream publishers, of readers in
Mm.
India, do you think it is a trend? Because sometimes there is that criticism of sometimes things become people become interested in something for a while and then forget about it again, and do you feel like that is going to happen to translations in India?
I don't think so. I don't think so. That's why I call it a movement, because the last 40 years at least we've seen this grow, and we still haven't reached the space or the place where translations sell by the word translations. They don't.
Yeah.
There was you must have picked up Marquez book or those kinds, and you realize that they are actually translations, but we didn't read them as translations. They were no
I
translations.
didn't even realize that until you just said it.
Yeah,
I
so they
didn't
were
realize
translations.
like Gabriel Garcia Marquez books are translations.
Yeah. So they're all translations. And so I think it is a movement more so than a trend. And it's going to take time. And I'll tell you something about the movement. When I started reading Indian these literature in translation, I realized we are missing out on a lot on the front of Indian literature. Now, in Indian English literature, we only see a very small portion of India, and that too mostly it's an urban setting, even if it's in a rural setting, it is a fully researched piece, definitely, and they're great researchers,
Yeah.
but the books in the Indian languages, they are they're rooted in the very ground, and so the emotions and a lot of details which come through them is quite authentic, and I find that we and varied as well, and an amount of subjects and the range of issues they have picked up, it's missing in Indian English. Okay, so this book, Brink, by S.L. Bhairappa, translated from Kannada. It's cross genre again, because it's romance, at the same time it talks about mental health, and it was written in the 1990s, much before
Oh,
mental
wow.
health became a movement in Indian English.
Yeah, and that's also something we say now, right? Ki, oh, mental health is something that's now being talked about, and there haven't been books in India
No.
that talk about mental health is something that we say now. But that's so interesting to know that this book existed and it was just missed out
Yeah.
on. Yeah, a lot of books in other languages do cover,
Yeah.
very interesting themes. So I also want to
Mm.
know, Trisha, about, your work or like your position as director, right? Because you're director of Niyogi Books. So what exactly does that entail? Because, again, when people think of publishing houses, they think of editors, right? So what is
Yeah.
it that, what does a day in your life or a week in your life look like?
Okay. So basically a publishing house is not is it's a complete team. We are a family at Yogi Books. So all of us do much more than the job profile that we have, and it's only because of my team that I can do a lot of different things. Just recently I came back from a trip. I had a burnout and I just walked out. I just took a trip to the hills. I just went to Landor and just for a trek. Just for a trek, but I also went in search for stories, some interesting subject or something interesting that I can get to
Yeah.
maybe commission a book on. So it's an idea that you get, and so it's actually in publishing. Anything you do, even the food you eat, the air you breathe, indirectly or indirectly be a part of publishing, because books are of various kinds on various subjects, and you have
Yeah.
to be observant and keep your eyes open, and you might just find an idea on the next turn, sort of thing. Plus, sometimes I go scouting for books, sometimes I go and meet authors, sometimes I go meet my distributors and booksellers. They are the best people to interact with to get the market data. So I go out, meet these people. I love talking to my readers at bookstores. So I keep on continuously interacting with them. I just wanted to show you one interesting experiment we've done. I
Sure.
hope it doesn't bomb. Uh, but
No, no, I
this
would love to see it.
this book has come out this month, in the month of June, and so this book is a folk lore and the folk stories from the great Andamanese tribe, who are supposed to be the first migrants, the African migrants who came to India. So it's that. The tribe from that time, and
Mhm.
now there aren't any living remembers or speakers of this language at all, but the
Oh,
author managed to document the folk stories and the folk songs of this tribe. So after every chapter, we have a song, may not be absolutely connected, but a
mhm.
folk song from the Andamanese tribe. And the author had audio visual documentation of these songs in their pidginish style of speaking and things like that. So we've got QR codes imprinted that
Oh,
you can scan and go to the audio visual element as well while reading the book.
that is so interesting.
So this is an experiment that I've done. I'm trying to do it for more books, and I hope it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. No, and for the people who are listening to this as a podcast and not watching, the book is called
Yeah.
Voices. Yeah. But that's fascinating. I've never seen, books with sort of QR code. And I feel like that is something that can um that has the potential to lead to so many interesting things. And in my head, it is something as simple as, oh, having a Spotify playlist playing
Yeah.
songs, like a particular, like the songs that the author wants us to listen to in the
Hmm.
background while reading a book. It's sort of
Yeah.
creating that atmosphere. But
Mhm.
obviously, in this case, it has so much more a value, right, and cultural value, because like you said, it's something that's almost lost, and there's such a different experience reading it, but such a different experience actually listening to it or watching sort of
Yeah.
those songs. So that's really, really fascinating. And but also I loved everything that you said about, working in a small team, and all,
Yeah.
like what your work life sort of is like, because Bound is very much like that, right? Like we're a small team. But I also want to ask you, what is, one thing that, or have you had any experience that has, made you feel super gratified with your experience as a publisher, like a moment where you felt like this is why I do this and this is like totally worth it.
Um, it's like almost every month I have one small or one incident that really makes me think very positive about the work that we are doing. Like today, um, I'm speaking with you, and you started off with such gushing words about the publishing house that I feel honored and I feel gratified for all of this that we're
Yeah.
doing today. Uh, but then there are several moments. For example, I'll tell you one of the incidences at a book fair, at Kolkata Book Fair. This is a couple of years back, couple of years ago, and there were two students. There were two students who had come by, and they were student of art, and they were there, and they really liked a book, specifically a book, and it was around 2,000 rupees, and with discount, it was around 1,200 rupees, and they were kind of counting the coins, like how much do we have. I didn't give him give it for free, but of course gave them a small discount more. I just said, okay, fine, you can take it for 1,100. And they were so happy. They paid the thing and took it, and they were gushing and saying thank you very much, and we loved the book, and they wrote about it. They used it in their research papers, and they were so happy with it. They wrote back on an email on how they enjoyed the book, and detailed emails and things like that. Even one typo they had mentioned, and I was like, okay, like one S typo. But I was like, it was great to have very honest feedback from readers and how they
Yeah,
found it useful in their research. Um,
absolutely. Like the fact that they read it so cover to cover to find that typo,
yeah.
and
Yes.
reach out to you.
I left jobs, high paying jobs, only because I wanted to be a part of publishing. That's why that's and it is true for almost everybody in publishing. And you know it that all of us are very passionate about books and culture and
Yeah.
the things that we do. And this passion is something which gets a boost every single time. A word of a good word, a nice feedback helps us publishers and people, the book people, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because there's no money in publishing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
to be honest, and I can see how it's so, so precious to feel seen, and appreciated for sort of all the hard work that goes into creating these books.
Yeah.
Coming back to translations,
Yeah.
um, like, we said there are so many sort of, translations becoming popular now, and, people may be wanting to get into translation, right? Because, and to be honest, like translating a story is hard. It's a very difficult and challenging thing to do, because I tried it once during my undergrad, when I translated for a like a class assignment, where
Okay.
we had to pick a short story from any Indian language and translate it into English.
Okay.
And I took the story written by P.L. Deshpande, because
Okay.
I'm Maharashtrian, so I took a
Yeah.
Marathi
Yeah.
story
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then tried to translate it to English, and I did a very, very bad job at it. So I know that translation is something very challenging and difficult, because you can't just translate words, right? You have to make sure you're capturing the essence, you're capturing sort of the hidden meanings and all of those things. And now that translations are sort of becoming popular,
Hmm.
what avenues do people who want to become translators have, as far as you know, to even get into that field? And
Hmm.
for translators, like, how can they um, get projects, or get into translations as
Okay.
a career or as a profession?
Yeah. First of all, there's no shortcut to this. Now, translators, with each passing day, with each word, with each book becoming a bestseller in translation now, the demand for translators are going up. Demand for good translators are going up. So you have to be a good translator. And how do you become a good translator is practice. Continuously practice. You have to be good in both your languages, both the languages. So the target language and the source language. So you have to continuously, first of all, read in both the languages. You
Yeah.
have to understand the culture in those languages. Now, I'll tell you an example of one of very prominent translators from um, foreign translators who came to India. Now, this is Professor Ronald Asher. He is a translator of Bashir. He's perhaps the first translator of Bashir from Malayalam to English. He was a professor in, I think, a professor in Edinburgh University last. I think
Right.
he's currently in his 80s or 90s. But when he was translating Bashir, he actually came down to Bashir's home. He was in Kerala, lived there for a while to understand each and every word and their connotation. A simple word can have several layers. So we
Yeah.
have to continuously understand those nuances. It's easy to translate. It is easy to literally use the words in a different language. You can just replace the idioms and things like that. It's much
Yeah.
easier. But the cultural import, the cultural export that happens is the most important thing. And many a times that doesn't come through. Now, there are different processes to it. How do you get these practices? First is to look to do short stories, perhaps a poetry, now poetry translations or things like that. There are a lot of magazines out there who are currently working on promoting translations, be it digital or physical. Now, I know a couple of them. For example, Asymptote is one digital magazine which works on promoting translated literature. There are also other magazines like Parabas and many more like that, like
Right.
News India and Poetry India. Then there is Chandrabhaga, which is again it is a physical magazine which promotes or gives boost to the art of translation. But there is
Yeah.
one thing I would like to point out when you're looking at translations: don't limit yourself to only fiction. You should also try and translate a lot of non-fiction also, because
Right.
non-fiction is currently very non-fiction translations are very little. We haven't done much of non-fiction translations. So
Hmm.
the thing is to practice translations and then go on to books. Use the platform these digital spaces have given, translate as much as can, and then go on for translations. Work with other translations, talk to other translators, talk to authors. I think you learn a lot more from there. Plus, having all of these activities, I think the new awards that we are getting, that we have, like the JCB award and all those, they're actually helping a lot of young and veteran translators also take it up as a full-time profession. First, try and get yourself published. If you get published, money will follow. It's the art, it's the experience, the art that you develop is going to give you a favorable outcome. So at
Yeah.
first, just try and learn. You might, like, for example, I did one translation. I'm on my fourth draft. I'm still not happy with it. I can't even show it to anybody right now. It's because I don't know. I'm
Um,
not confident about it at all. And even though I'm working with translators and translations every day, but it's hard. It's hard. And that is why I thought of doing it all by myself. And I realize it's not easy at all.
it is not. It is absolutely supremely difficult to, I think, translate something and then be happy with it, or you don't know when you're done.
Yeah.
Also, to some extent, right? Like, know where to stop. But I also want to ask you, how does Neogi Books work? Because you work with so many translators and illustrators as well, right? So, when you think of a book idea that, this is a book that we must
Mm-hmm.
do or publish in some way, do you
Mm-hmm.
then yourself reach out to translators who might be interested, or do translators like come to you? How does that sort of process work?
So it works both ways. It's not always that we reach out to a translator, but many times the authors find the translator and also get back to us. But there are many times we
Right.
also commission translators, uh, but we see their previous work. How much have they worked? How much they have translated? What all they have translated, and it. So we do vet completely the translators work before working with them, because otherwise it gets very difficult for the editor, because if you say a
Yeah.
bad translation, it becomes very difficult for us to correct and almost retranslate each and every word. Plus our editors, most of our editors are bilingual, so
Oh,
that is how they can many a times understand and actually vet both the translation and with in comparison to the original.
right.
Other,
That makes perfect sense, because how would in order to even gauge if something is well done or not, you
yeah,
need to
yeah,
understand it to some extent. Yeah.
yeah. Or otherwise we reach out to subject matter specialists. Now there are many languages where we don't have the expertise, then we have to depend on the subject matter specialist and then trust them and see that the English at least reads or connects with the audience. For example, there's this one book we published from Vishnu Priya Manipuri. It it is a very very small, maybe a very small subset of a language in Manipur. So how do we
Mhm.
translate that, and how many speakers? But the editors were subject matter specialists, so we were able to translate those kind of work. And
Right.
similarly we published we published one book from, I think, Rajasthani. It is about the tribes. It's a fiction on the tribes from Rajasthan, and we just could work on the target language and believe the subject matter specialist. So
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that is very interesting to know, right? Because, like, thinking about those intricacies almost of how translation works at the back end with publishing houses and with editors. Um, but I also want to talk about the pandemic. So, elephant in the room. What has the pandemic been like for you as a person, as a reader, and
hmm.
for Neogi books?
Okay. Now, as Nyogi books and as a reader, there are two different aspects.
Yeah.
Um, I'll start with how my reading cycle went about. In the beginning, 1 month I read like 5 books, sort of thing. My work also shot up. We were working very hard. We were literally working 16 hours a day, my entire team, because we were working from home and trying to create digital content throughout. So we were literally working 16 hours a day,
Yeah.
still reading, and things are going on. But then fatigue set in, and thereafter, I couldn't read much for the next 2 months. I was very slow. I might have read one book in 2 months thereafter. June, things started opening up, work started piling up, mental block started going down. I felt more happier, and then the reading started happening again for me. But and then it was a steady process. I don't think there have been ups and downs during months, but it's not something that is very relevant because it's there. There been the
Yeah.
second wave has come, and we don't know what is going to happen in the future. But at the work front, we were hit badly, of course, because for several months we had no revenue. We had no revenue
Right.
at all. There were no sales, there were no revenue, and but we saw a boost in the ebook sale. Um, there might be a book, there was a boost in the ebook sale, but India is still a nation of touch and feel. We still like to hold our book in our hands and read. We are still a physical
Absolutely.
book, and there is a charm to it. We cannot deny it. And so, when the physical books were not selling, of course, the revenue offset was not there at all. So somehow, of course, we managed, and we had great hope that things would change for us. So we started seeing a revival of the books from the month of August. As soon as Amazon opened or independent bookstore opened, I saw people go rushing to the
To buy
bookstores
new
and
books.
buy books. We need more books. We need more books, and that was a wonderful sight to have. And so things started getting better thereafter again, and promising. Last month again we had the lockdown. It was bad, definitely,
Mhm.
but since it was a short time, it doesn't really affect us much more as such so much. uh, Plus, I also maintain that we have gone through World War II. We have gone through several crisis situation in our lives. We have had book burning incidences in our life in the history, but books have always stood steadfast. And so
Yeah.
books, and there were many people asked me the question, are books going to die? Like, definitely not. The human race might, but books will not. Is something new go on. Okay. But
Yeah.
that has been a thing. Then we saw during the last lockdown, anxiety was very high, and I could feel it within our organization. All of us were quite anxious about what is
Yeah.
going to happen, and there was fear all around. So we had a very small initiative wherein we gave away some of our ebooks because we still couldn't deliver physical books. So we said that we're going to 20 days, we're going to give you 20 Indian literature books in translation to
Right.
readers. And many people downloaded the books, and every day now they finish the book, they write that they've finished the book and they've liked the book and things like that. And many books like Gili Gadu specifically, which was by Chitra Mutkal, translation from Hindi,
Mhm.
was about two men in their old age, and how people appreciated that book, and it got raving reviews, and people absolutely admired the book. And though it was launched sometime during the pandemic and couldn't reach out much to the readers, the fact that now, even though for free, people read it and read the author's work. Chitra Mudgal is a very famous author, very popular author, and for obvious reasons. And now they're reading their work. It's a sense of satisfaction. It's a sense of gratification that I get from being able to do that. So, um, all our efforts during the first pandemic showed results by January, February. And even though they're delayed, I see a very promising future for books also. I think for any creative art, it's going to only get better.
Yeah.
Just wait for a while. It's just a trial period. We'll get over it.
Yeah. No, that's super heartening. And you know what you said about people asking, are books going to die or are books going to be irrelevant? I feel like that is a question or a conversation that happens so many times
Yeah.
over and over again, right? But
Yeah.
definitely, books have survived a
Yeah.
lot of things.
They always have, and they will also in the future. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it.
What do you see in the future for Neogi books or for translations as a
Mhm.
whole in the next few years?
Um, okay, so we are moving um, into children's literature. Um,
Oh,
it's a process. It's going to take us time. It is not something that we intend to move very fast, because we want to choose and do books which are very relevant and challenges social norms.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk too much about it just yet
Are you
because
starting a new imprint? Like, is it going to be
it's going to be a new imprint. We are
okay?
going to include translations also in it for young adults. It's for children and young adults. We are going to have special translations as well. But while doing these translations, I realized that there is a need to come up and produce newer works because many of them I feel are outdated, and the
Yeah.
values have from the classic they've outdated, and we need updated material, updated reading material for our
Children.
children.
Yeah.
I love children's book. I still read children's book. There was this one pickle yolk book I picked up. It was marvelous. I just finished it in like 10 minutes, but I was thinking about it for the next 30 minutes, like how marvelous the book was. And
Yeah,
so
I love YA books. Like young adult books are
yeah,
sometimes like so much like deeper and dealing with sort of very real things and very
yeah.
moving.
So I
Um
read this book, young adult book. I went to this bookstore, children's bookstore in Gurgaon. It's called Cool School, and I love the way they present and curate the books. And I
yeah.
went them to ask them for suggestion on what kind of books work. So I went there and I found this book called Cog, explaining artificial intelligence to
To
young adults.
children.
Yeah,
Oh,
and there was this boy whose name was Cog, and there was a girl, and there were a dog which is also made of art. It was not
like
made.
a
It was a
robot
robot.
dog.
Yeah, it's a robot dog, and how AI was different. Artificial intelligence for different for each one of them. It was a very interesting book that I absolutely loved, and I'm like being recommending it to everybody. Yeah, pado, 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 pado. Then there is two more books which in the last couple of years, couple of months that I've really come to appreciate. One is Toto-chan. That's from Japan. It's a Japanese
I
young
have
man.
read this book.
It's
I was
lovely.
thinking of this book when you were talking about I mean sometime when we were talking about translations because I
Yeah.
have read this book in Marathi.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
is in Hindi also, but
when
Toto-chan
I was a kid, yeah.
experimental schooling, but a lovely book. I read it quite late in life. I think I read it a couple of years back only, and but I loved it. So Toto-chan is one. The second one is Kids and Cups. It's from Russian, written by a Kazakh author, and we had to search for this book. But I got to know this book from my best friend who read it in Malayalam in when she was a child, and I somehow missed it out. I was like, and I searched. Has it been translated into Bangla or English and everything? And realized no, it was not translated to Bangla, but it was translated to Bengali, Marathi, Malayalam, and sorry, not Bengali, Malayalam, Kannada, and Tamil. And like, why did it come to Bengal? Because we were so strong in Russian literature. How could it not be there?
Yeah.
Uh, so whatever. Then we published it again in English. Now it's available. And it wasn't available anywhere. So we finally republished it in our children's series of classics. And Kids and Cubs, Olga Perovskaya. It's an amazing book. How our lives can be intertwined with animals, with different animals like dogs, not just dogs, but horses and ponies and chickens and lambs and sheep and so
Yeah.
many other things. It was like very cute stories, very moving stories also, and
Yeah.
that
I
book
I
loved.
still can't get over the Toto-chan thing because I mean in my head because I have this very distinct memory of my dad buying me this book in Marathi and then forcing me to read it because he was like, you can't read Marathi. You can only read English and you need to like
Yeah.
develop Marathi reading skills. And my mom would sort of sit with me and force me to read it every day after school. And I just have this very strong memory, which I mean, like you brought back by mentioning Toto-chan.
My grandmom used to read me comics, and I used to read with her Bengali comics like Nonte Fonte, and they were it was funny. And after that, we got hooked to it, and then we started reading children's literature, Shishindu Mukhopadhyay, everybody in Bangla and everything. But I think I lost touch with Bangla. Stopped reading Bangla when I went to college, and then in the 20s, late 20s, I won't even say, around 24, 25, I started reading again in Bangla. Then the read, and this time when I picked up Bangla again, I enjoyed reading Bangla. Like I don't know, somehow when you've um, grown up a little bit, these children literature become uh, more popular. Somehow they've had a different impact. Like I read Feluda over again in Bangla.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about Feluda because like so classic
Absolutely. But
Bangla literature, right? Yeah.
I saw it with a different light. I saw science fiction in a different light. I wouldn't read science fiction before that, but now I do like science fiction
Right.
as well. And that gives me more ideas. Perhaps this is lacking in our science fiction today. Perhaps we can do something more. So,
Yeah.
and it is true that a translation can never be as good as the original, but translation is necessary because I can't read the original Tamil, and I
Yeah.
can't read Kannada, but I still need to know what's happening and what are the new subjects, what are the new ideas that are coming up. Otherwise, I will still remember be I will become
Yeah,
very
in my own
small in
bubble,
my
right?
own.
Like, yeah.
Like in Bengali, we saw there's this movie called Agantuk, and there they mention about Kupumundo, uh, Kupumundok, I think. Like basically, it is the frog in the well. You
Hmm.
can't be the frog in the well. You have to jump up and get out. Otherwise, you'll slip down and you'll stay stuck in that well, and you'll just have a very little smaller outlook. So you have to
Yeah.
read
To me,
different.
it reminds me of that story of the drawing the elephant, where
Uh-huh.
they I don't know, it was set in some place where people had not seen elephants, and they sort of blindfold a bunch of people, and then
Ah,
they ask them to just touch the
that,
elephant and then draw the elephant based on
yeah.
their idea of what it looks like, and
Yeah.
they all, because they touch one part of it, they
Uh,
only draw like one part of it, and so it's like they never have a clear idea of what the entire elephant looks like.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
But also, all this talk is inspiring me. I mean, maybe I should go back to reading Marathi literature, which I haven't read in so long. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should go and read a book and see
why
if I
don't you
can
read
even
it aloud?
read Marathi anymore.
I think you can always read it aloud. See, a lot of Marathi has a lot of, if you read it slow, a lot of Hindi speakers will also be able to understand. Of course, there might be words that
Yeah.
you not understand, but I think it is just fair. Why don't you read it aloud? For the
Yeah,
rest of us. Because
absolutely.
language nuances are also very particular each language.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I will try reading a Marathi book this year. It
Look
can be
forward,
my
forward to it.
reading goal for the year. But okay, so now I want to move on to the rapid fire round. Your current read.
Deep Thinking by Gary Kasparov.
Yeah. Which is also AI, right? So you are in your AI zone of reading
Uh,
right now.
so that's how it starts with where artificial intelligence ends and human creativity begins.
Ooh,
So that is why I'm reading this.
interesting.
Yeah.
I realized while talking to you that I'm also reading what is technically a translation. So it's
Oh, okay.
Anxious People by Frederick Backman. So it's Swedish.
Yeah, I've heard so much about it.
Yeah.
How is it?
Okay.
Is it good?
It's really good. I love it so much. I finished it. I mean, it's
Uh-huh.
just the most beautiful,
Uh,
heartwarming book that
uh.
makes you laugh and cry, and I am in love with it. What do you do when you're not reading?
Dancing. I love dancing. I love watching movies. I love treks and traveling. Um, Theater, watching theater, photography. Go out, go out and about the city every Sunday morning with my best friend and explore a nook and corner of Delhi.
My final question is one must read translation.
Huh. Okay. Now that's a difficult question. One must read. One must read. Uh, then I will suggest Tagore. Any book you pick up, I think, yeah, you must read Rabindranath Tagore, any of his translations. Specifically, I suggest Chitra because being a feminist, I think this play in trans, it's a very small book, but this is a very, I read it when I was feeling a little low, and I found it very empowering that women can do anything under the sun. And it's a very, I think, maybe 36 or 40 odd pages, but it's a translation.
That sounds amazing. I think I've only read Chokir Bali by him.
It is. There are quite a few of them.
Yeah.
It may not be the most famous of all of them. There's Post Office. There's so many more, but this I recommend to everybody because uh, it's just moving. It doesn't take much of your time. It'll just maybe perhaps take you 15-20 minutes, but it's an important book to read. I will stop now. I think anybody can DM me and ask me if there are any more recommendation on a specific subject or they're looking at, I can do that.
Yes, everyone who's listening or watching, you can DM Trisha if you want recommendations on specific topics, specific languages,
Yeah,
specific
I'll try my best.
genres within languages that you want recommendations for.
Yeah, I'll try my best.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much, Trisha, for joining me here for the book people and talking to me so much about Neogi books, about translations, and like really inspiring me to also start reading in multiple languages. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me here. Even I'm inspired. Now it has given me more ideas, by the way. So it was great talking to you today. And I hope people find it useful.
So that was Trisha the Niyogi talking about why it's so important to read books and read stories from different cultures and different languages and not become, like she says, a frog in the well. And she's definitely inspired me to start reading books in Marathi and in other languages, and that is going to be one of my reading goals for 2021. So join me if you also want to do the same. As you know, this series is brought to you by Bound, a company that helps you tell your stories. And if you work in a small team like we do, make sure that you check in on your teammates and on your friends to see how they're doing during the pandemic and during these difficult times. And if you need help with taking your book to the right audience, remember to DM us at Bound India on all social platforms or email us at connect@boundindia.com. And don't forget to tune into our other podcast, Books and Beyond with Bound, which is back with season 3, where we talk to a lot of different and interesting authors and where we talk to Arunava Sinha, who is an expert translator, if you want to know more about translations. Thanks for tuning into The Book People. I'm Aishwarya, and I'll be back next week with another guest and a new question to answer. Until then, keep reading.